Hey YouTubers, today I'm working on the 2007 Volkswagen Touareg, and the situation today is that I'm getting a gas smell. I'm getting a gas smell when I stand on the side of the vehicle by the doors. I open the hood. I'm not smelling gas under the hood at all, so I don't think it's any of the lines under the hood. At first I thought maybe it was an injector seal, or maybe the lines going to the fuel pump or something like that, but there's absolutely no smell under the hood. It's on the side of the vehicle, and I crawled under the vehicle and I can smell it under the car. Also, the problem is I don't see fuel. Like, there's no moisture anywhere under the vehicle whatsoever. I can leave it idling for a half hour and I smell fumes, and there's not a drop of gas on the ground. There's not a drop of gas anywhere along the body underneath the car or on the tank. I'm confused. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to remove the covers. So really quick, I'm going to show you guys on these cars. You lift up the back seat to fold it down, and then there are two covers, one for each sending unit. There's one sending unit on the driver's side that goes to the front of the vehicle, and there's one that is on the passenger side, which goes to the driver's side tank. So I'm going to take it off. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. Hopefully the leak will be there and I'll be able to figure out a way to fix it. But as usual, if you like the videos I make, click like so I know I can make more the same, and if you want to see more, then click subscribe so that when I do make more, you'll know about it. Alright, so here I am on the passenger side. I raised the seat bottom up, and here's where the sending unit is. It's laying under here. To get to this, I need to remove this bracket, which holds half of the seat and as well as the seat buckle. The seat buckle is held on by these bolts. I think that's 17mm, and then this whole bracket is held in by triple squares, actually. Yeah, so there's triple squares. There's one there, and there's one there, and one there, and one here. So I got 4 triple squares, and I actually think that if I remove the triple squares, this bracket with the seat belt will come out on this bigger bracket. So I'll undo the 4 first, see if it comes up. If it doesn't, then I'll undo those 2 and then see if it comes up like that. And then once you get that up, then there's 4 10mm bolts. One of them is under here, under this bracket, which is why it's got to come out. And then once you take that off, the whole thing lifts up and you can inspect the sending unit. The same thing happens on the other side, except that there's carpet covering the bracket on the other side. Okay, so it's as I suspected. This bracket, so the seat belt buckle is bolted to the bracket, so there's no need to remove these 2 bolts. This whole assembly comes out as one piece once you take those triple squares out of there, and you can tell by the blue discoloration that there's lots of tread lock in there, so I had to put my shoulder into it. So now just gotta go grab a 10mm, take that cover off, see what's under there, see if maybe my suspicions may be right. If I don't see anything under here, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side and see if the other side is okay. Alright, so I pulled this cover off. This little unit here, I guess this operates the fuel pump. It gets warm to the touch, not hot, but in here is dry as a bone. Like, there is no signs of any fuel leak anywhere under here. So this side was definitely a bust. I'm gonna go check over on the other side, but now that I take this off, I can smell lots of fuel. It's not over here. The fuel leak is not over here. So I'm hoping I'll just go over to the other side and maybe see something that I can attack, because I can't start fixing it unless I know what to fix. So let's go over to the other side and take some stuff apart. Okay, so I'm over on the driver's side, and it's more of the same, except that the driver's side for some reason is covered by this piece of carpet. But same procedure, I'm gonna have to remove those triple square bolts, take this bracket off, which this bracket is holding the seat, so it's not gonna be quite as easy as the other side. But still, I'm gonna take this bracket off. I don't know that I'm gonna remove it completely, maybe just move it out of the way so that I can get the 4 bolts out and see what's going on under here. There's some, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's some discoloration over here, and that might be from stuff spilling down onto the carpet from up top, or it might be from fuel leaking from on the bottom. Won't know until I take everything apart, so I guess I'll take everything apart. So I removed the triple squares from here. I thought the whole thing was gonna have to move, but since this swivels, it actually swivels up and out of the way. And so I was able to move it up and out of the way, and then do the 10 millimeters that go around here. And then same thing on the other side. There's a little bit of sealant, so you just gotta come in here with a little pry bar and pry. And then once you pry in one area, you go around and pry in another area, pry in another area, and then it'll just come loose. And then once it comes loose, then there you go, whole thing comes out. So now that I've pried 95% of it loose, there we go. Oh yeah, come to Papa. So this puddle, yep, that's gasoline. Yeah, that puddle of gasoline leads me to suspect that the leak is here. So the only part of this that fuel goes into or out of is right here, and I'm guessing this is where the leak is. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because now I know where my problem is. It's a bad thing because I'm really not sure how I'm gonna go about solving that. And it's also a good thing because this is the auxiliary tank, so the car can run without this tank. Like, I can disconnect this and the car will still run. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm guessing this nipple might be broken. I'm gonna try to soak up this gas, take this connection off without breaking this nipple completely, and seeing if there's any kind of remedy I can do to fix this problem, because it's definitely a problem. Alright, well, there's good news and there's bad news. And the good news is, here, let me see if I can turn my flash on. There we go. So the good news is, I thought it was going to be this hose. It's not this hose. The bad news is, it's the actual top of the sending unit. So when I spray this out and I get rid of all the gas, right down in here keeps filling back up. So somewhere down in here, there's a crack in this base that's allowing fuel to come up through here and onto the top of the tank, and that's where I'm smelling gas from. So I'm going to have to take this off, take this whole sending unit off, take this base off of here, and see if there's a restriction causing back pressure that's causing this to back up, which I doubt, because this is the only way in or out of the tank, so there shouldn't be any back pressure, there shouldn't be any pressure. Or maybe there's just simply a crack somewhere up here that needs to be sealed up to resolve this problem. If it's a crack that I cannot seal up, then I'm just gonna have to order a new one of these gizmos. So I'm gonna take a note of the part number, see how much it costs, because I mean, if it's $100, I'll just change it out. But at least I know where the problem is and I know what needs to be fixed. I didn't want to take this sending unit out, but I had to, and I'm glad I did. So this piece right here, this section right here, this is where it was leaking, and I don't know if you can see down in there if it'll focus, but there's a hairline crack in there, and that's where the fuel was coming up from. So this whole section is kind of like a little bowl, and there are lines going in inside the tank. There are lines going in here and here, and these lines, this big one I believe it was, is pressurized, because once I disconnected it, it sprayed gas everywhere. So that's why this kept leaking even after I cleaned it up, is because this bowl keeps pressure inside of it from the fuel system, from the lines going in from the bottom. So now that I have it out and the system is disconnected and there's no more pressure, I cleaned it up really good. And what I'm gonna do is, this section right here where it's leaking, I'm gonna take my Dremel. So I'm gonna take this Dremel in this bit, and I'm gonna go in there and just rough it up real good, make it nice and rough. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I'm just gonna fill that entire section with JB Weld. And then I'm gonna come around here on this side, and I'm gonna rough up this side also, and then JB Weld over here too, because I can't tell if it's leaking over here or not, but since I'm already in here, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'm gonna JB weld this also. So I'm gonna rough this up, JB weld it, rough this up, JB weld it. Same thing over here. Actually, yeah, same thing over here. There's gonna be a lot of JB weld. Slightly new plan, modification of the old plan. So I started grinding away on the top side of this, and I thought to myself, you know, when you're in a situation where you need to seal up a leak or anything like that, it's always a good idea to seal it from the pressurized side so that your sealant is working with the pressure and not against it, so it won't pop out. So I took this bottom piece off, and inside of it is a filter. Here's the fuel filter. I wish I knew this. I really wish I knew this before I started this project, because I definitely would have ordered this fuel filter. Now I really want to order this fuel filter. I wish I didn't have to drive my car for the next few days, because then I could just order the fuel filter, but I don't have that option, so I'm gonna have to put this old filter back. But yeah, so if you're doing this project, be mindful that there's a fuel filter in here. There may be one also on the passenger side sending unit, but the driver side sending unit, definitely this filter just slips in here, and that's what's in this little section. But when I opened it up and I could look down in here, you can look down in here and see, let me see if the camera will pick it up, but you can hardly see it, but you see that little dark line, this dark line right here, this is the crack. So this is where it's cracked in this little housing, and the gas is coming through that crack up to the top, and that's where it's leaking. So I'm gonna grind away on here a little bit, make it rough, and I'm gonna seal it on the inside here where the crack is on the inside of the housing. That way when this is pressurized, it's gonna be pushing the JB weld against it instead of putting it on the outside, and it'll be trying to push the JB weld off of the housing. I think that would be a better solution. So I'm gonna grind away on that and then mix up some JB weld. I mixed up some juice right here, put it in there, pasted it on nice and thick. I'm probably gonna slobber it on a little bit more, and then for good measure I went on top here where it was leaking out of the top, and I gunked it all down inside that hole so that that's clogged up also, just for good measure. I mean, why not? So now I just gotta leave this out and let it dry for a few hours, and then put Humpty Dumpty back together again. We'll see what happens. Pro tip of the day. So I put everything together, it wouldn't start for anything. This little area right here where it was leaking was not pressurizing, and then when I pulled it apart, this O-ring wasn't seated, it was all kind of jacked to one side, so that's why it wasn't sealing, and so I'm guessing that's why this wasn't pressurizing, and that's why the car wouldn't start. I was getting a dribble of fuel going to the rail from the body of the car, and I couldn't figure it out, pulled it off. This wasn't seated properly, and it's giving me a little bit of a task getting it on there. I'll get it on there, but just pro tip, when you're putting this on, be very careful, make sure that it's perfectly seated when you assemble these two pieces. Otherwise you won't be able to pressurize this and the car simply will not start. And I finally got it on right. I had to put the O-ring around the lip on the white part, and then put the brown part on top of it, and just kind of wiggle it in a radial motion while I push on it, and it's stuck down. And the way to tell if the O-ring is properly seated, you either block this side off and blow air into this, or blow into this and block this side just with your mouth, and there should be no escaping of air. It should just be pressurized. You shouldn't be able to blow any air into it at all. And then once you cinch these down, you know, you don't crank it because you're squeezing in you're screwing in the plastic. So just once you feel resistance, just a little bit more, and that's it, and you're done. This side has nothing to do with that. This is a one-way check valve. This should be able to pressurize. If you blow into this and you block this off and air is escaping somewhere, you got to pull this O-ring back off and see what's going on. So now I'm going to put it back in the car and see if the car will start. Now, down in here, you can see I've been driving this for 300 miles. It is bone dry. See, this is where it was leaking, is this gray spot. That's all JB weld there. And then I put some around here, and then on the inside of it there's big old slobber of JB weld where I sanded it and then put JB weld there. So after 300 miles it is bone dry. My solution worked. It's not leaking fuel, there's no gas smell, everything is fantastic. I'm really happy about that. A couple things I noticed immediately. The first thing I noticed was that my starts were more immediate. You know, especially first thing in the morning. So my first start in the morning after the car's been sitting all night, I would crank it. I would get maybe a 3 to 5 second crank, you know, just whirring around, and then it would fire up. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's immediate, and even in the middle of the day, it would. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't a long crank to where I would be worried about it starting. It's just, it was something that was so progressive. And it was something that had been progressing over time to the point where I didn't notice that it was getting like that until now that the problem is solved and my crank is immediate. I mean, it probably makes one revolution and then fires right up. So that's really nice. It idles a little bit better. I don't know, it might actually idle better. It might just be in my mind. It might just be, you know, my thought process that it idles better since I fixed it. Also on moderate acceleration in the taller gears, I used to hear a little bit of a detonation ping. You know, you just get that rattle at just the right RPM and just the right situation. That has gone away. So I'm guessing that leaking and dropping off fuel pressure was causing a mild fuel starvation situation, and that has gone away. Now, in hindsight, couple things. One, I would definitely look up the price of that sending unit, and I would have probably just changed it out. It's just that I thought there was a pump in there, and I'm sure I could get a pump cheap, but you don't really want to do a cheap fuel pump. You want to get OEM quality, because it's a pain to change. And not only that, but if it ever did fail, it would fail at the most inopportune moment. I almost guarantee you'd be on the highway at least 200 miles from home at a time of day when there's no repair shops open, and that's when it would fail. So I wasn't going to cheap out on it if there was a pump in there. I still wouldn't cheap out on it, but I'm guessing it would be substantially less expensive since it's just a little plastic bellow that gets pressurized. And also there's a filter in there. So knowing what I know now, and I still might actually just go ahead and buy the filter and change it out maybe next time I do an oil change, because it's not a big deal to get in there. But yeah, if I knew there was a filter in there, I would have bought it before I even started this whole thing, and definitely changed it out once I got that sending unit out of there. Today I got a final update on my fueling issues. Sorry about that, I knocked the camera. And I'm gonna show you guys real quick. First of all, the repair that I showed you that I did, it works fine, it's great. But then I went and got this. So this is the bellow, this is the piece that was leaking, and I went and got another one online. And the reason why was because once I took it apart and I realized that there was a fuel filter in this, it just kept bugging me that the fuel filter had been in there since 2007. And so I went to buy a fuel filter. Well, the fuel filter was over 20 bucks. And then for about $12 more, I got the entire unit. Now this is not OEM, and you can tell it's not OEM because it has Phillips head screws on the back here, where the original one had Torx screws on the end of it. But you know, it's not too complex. All it has to do is hold fuel pressure inside here. It's just a fuel pressure accumulator. Fuel goes in one side and it goes out the other side and then goes to the front of the vehicle, and the pressure accumulates inside of here so that you have, I guess, kind of a reserve of pressure. And then there's a vent hole on the top here. It's pretty simple and straightforward. I didn't mind buying an aftermarket one of these. Now if it was the actual fuel pump with the electronics in it, I don't think I would have cheaped out, but you know, it's a plastic bellow, so it would be pretty hard to screw this up. I didn't think too much of buying an aftermarket cheap piece. This was, I think it was $34 online, and so now I'm gonna just take everything apart real quick, put this in. Came with a new filter, and so I'll have a new filter in there, the peace of mind of knowing that I have a brand new fuel filter in there, and then that'll be the end of that. Now if I had a fuel filter at the time when I did the original repair, I would not have bought this, but you know, it just kept bugging me, and so here we are. This is the final episode on this, changing the part. After I did all those repairs, I'm ending up changing the part, but it's not that expensive. Like I said, 35 bucks. So that's it, guys. Have a good day. I'm gonna change my part out.